Welcome to the Trial Time Podcast. I'm Adam Parker, your host, along with my co-host, Jim Parkman. And we have a special guest today, former Navy SEAL, CIA operative, and right-hand man to the late notorious tech mogul, John McAfee, Jimmy Watson.
How are y'all doing?
Doing good.
Jimmy, doing great. Let me say this. Let me say this to you right off the bat, okay? I know you hear it, but I'm gonna say it again. I'm gonna tell you why I'm gonna say it. But thank you for your service to the United States of America. My son was in the Marine Corps. He's out now. I was in the Army years ago. And Adam, if you say one word about me having to ride a horse, I'm through with you. But I'm real proud of my son. He was in the Marine Corps and elected to go in the Marine Corps. And I went to his what do you call it, inauguration at the base, and it was something special. I'll tell you this: I cried because I knew it was special. It was special to him. And when they pinned the world on you, I don't know if you can remember back then, but that was something back then. That was something to see.
You know, I was in the Air Force, Jim. Does that count?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
It only counts if you're talking to civilians. Other service members don't count the Air Force, but
It absolutely does. You know, every single service, I realize whatever position you held or served, whether it be the Coast Guard or the SEALs, the whole gamut. I'll tell you what, our servicemen and women, they deserve some type of applause. And you know, I never took it seriously when people said thank you for your service. I just blew it off. But I guess as the older I get, the more impactful it is when somebody says it. So it's an honor to be on your show, and it's an honor for your for me to be able to speak to your audience. I just appreciate every one of you. Thank you very much for that.
Well, Jimmy, no, we thank you. And I tell you where I'd like to start is I'd like to start with how you decided to go into the military, and how old were you and what made you go?
Well, I started out, it started out as a childhood boy dream. I would just go around and pick up every single novel that I could on Green Berets, the long range reconnaissance patrols of Vietnam. I was pretty infatuated by it. My parents didn't hold me back from the R-rated movies like Platoon and all these different movies that we see. And so I don't know where I got it, because one time, it's a great question, because one time I was at a family reunion. I was about 8 years old. My aunt said, little Jimmy, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I just automatically said, I want to be a Navy SEAL. And everybody just kind of took a step back and kind of laughed, because they were like, where did he get that? But the problem is that I didn't have the physical ability or the mental aptitude to become a SEAL. I was kind of a runt, but I had the heart of a lion. And so I had this dream, but it was so frustrating to have a dream and to know you were meant to do something in that war capacity. And one, there not be a war, because before 9/11, no one could imagine us going into a 20-year war. But I knew in my heart that I was going to go to war, as weird as that is. And I would tell my dad that. He would say, son, wars are not fought like that anymore. We couldn't even think about putting men and women into harm's way like we used to in Vietnam after that. But as you know, 9/11 happens. I'm in the Marine Corps at the time, and I go. And a lot of guys were crying when they announced 9/11. But for me, I was crying, not in a fearful way, but because I knew in my heart that I would be going to war. I knew that I was destined for this kind of stuff. So I had to start out in the Marine Corps to answer your question initially. And I started out, I was a wild kid. At the age of 14, my parents took me out of school. They didn't know what to do with me. All I could think about was going to the military, and all the cool stuff about digging foxholes outside of my dad's Texas farm, and really how appreciative I was to lay down my life for my country. At a really young age, I understood this concept. And so I dreamed of becoming a SEAL, but I was realistic. And after doing all the little physical tests, that I could get off of online and stuff, I knew that I was way, way, way far away from even coming close to the minimum standards that you have to get in order to be a SEAL. And so as a child, it was really frustrating because math was really hard for me. Eternity could be described as my dad trying to teach me math in basic arithmetic and things, because I was just so distracted. And so my parents eventually took me out of school. They sent me to Texas Bible College, and my mom somehow got me into Texas Bible College at 14 years old. Everybody else, maybe the average age was 30. So you could, and people used to laugh at me. Coaches would laugh at me when I would say I was going to be a Navy SEAL. It's the quintessential story of the overcomer in the face of all odds. And by the time I was ready to become a SEAL, it was many years of training physically, many years of self-teaching, with app study guides, how to, math for dummies, math for writing for dummies. And so eventually I got a university degree. But long story short, I had to join the Marine Corps because I wasn't able to qualify for a SEAL. And I got the very, very bare minimum ASVAB scores to become a Marine. And so I all I could do was become an infantryman because an 0311. But it was an incredible experience. And I look back and laugh because, I really thought I was big, hot stuff, but there's no way God would allow me to go on to do anything other than what I did, because I had to go through many, many little micro steps to get where I was.
Did you go to Parris Island?
No, sir. I went to MCRD, Camp Pendleton, California.
Okay. I take it was the same type of training that we saw that I saw with my son at Parris Island.
Yes, when you were talking about your son and how honorable he was and how significant that graduation was, where they pinned the Globe anchor on, wow. I can remember that being one of the most significant things that had ever accomplished.
Listen, I told you I cried, and it wasn't. I cried because it was. I realized that he had done something that he wanted to do, and that he did something that was very difficult to do. It's not easy being a Marine, okay? I don't care what people say. I know it's not. And he went through it, got the globe pinned on him that day, and the music and everything. I was so proud of it. It was unbelievable.
Yes, sir. I'll tell you what, being a Marine, I will say being a Marine at times was more difficult than being a SEAL because of one thing, the living conditions, and you don't get anything to eat. If you feed a man 4 times a day, he's got energy so you can beat him up a long time. And that's what they do at BUD/S. Basically got to walk to school for the vetting process to be a SEAL. But in the Marine Corps, you may not get to eat, and you still got to exert a ton of energy, and then you sleep in a hole for 40 days. In the SEALs, you train hard, and it's absolutely miserable at times, but you might go to a 5-star hotel, 3 days later, and then have a lot of fun. So there's a huge difference there, So
yeah.
It's fun.
So first of all, how long were you a Marine before you got into the SEAL program?
Well, I did 4 years in the Marine Corps.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And every minute we're headed toward trying to get in the SEAL program.
That's right. Every single second of my thoughts was going right towards to be a SEAL. In fact, I tried to laterally change over from the Marine Corps to the Navy, which is extremely hard. And they just were like, they looked at me and they're like, sorry, it's not going to work for you. I still had, my stature was real skinny guy. Not that that's bad, but for me, it was bad knowing what I wanted to do. And of course, you think that you have to have muscles to go in the SEALs, which you don't. It's always the opposite of what you really think. You think you have to be something you don't, but you definitely have to have a physical maturity or be an extreme athlete, but I wasn't an athlete. And I had to just bust my butt for years. And so, yes, the ultimate goal, Mr. Jim, was to become a SEAL.
Wow. How long? I know the answer, but tell people that are listening, how long does it take to go through the SEAL program before you actually become a SEAL? And on top of that, let's talk about how many people didn't make it through that training.
Yeah, it's quite deceiving. The numbers are deceiving, and the time frame is deceiving, because if you can imagine, it takes about a year from the time you walk into the recruiter's office to the time you actually are able to get what is known as a SO or SEAL contract. It's not like back in the day where you're a gunner's mate. You got to go to the Navy first for 2 years and then try out for the SEALs. Now they have a guaranteed contract. Doesn't mean you're going to be a guarantee a SEAL, but you have a guaranteed contract that you're going to become a SEAL if you make it. The very, very small chance that you make it. The SEALs are different than anywhere else because it's very scary going in, because if you don't make it, then it's not like, okay, cool, get out and go about your business. No, now the Navy gets to choose wherever they want to put you. And it's an excellent scheme, if you think about it, to get these amazing, well-abled men to come in and fulfill thousands of different roles in the Navy, such as painting ships and busting barnacles. And so one reason why a lot of guys don't go is because there's a very, very small chance that you're going to make it. In that very, very huge chance that you're not going to make it, you're going to go to there's about a 90%, 99% chance you're going to a ship to scrub barnacles. So it's a psychological disadvantage to go there. To answer the question about length of time, many people believe that, BUD/S is 6 months. I don't know why they put that propaganda out there, because it's actually approximately 2 years, maybe 2.5 years before you get to an actual team. And at that point you get to a team, you're technically a SEAL, okay? But when you get to the actual team, they always say it gets much worse. And you're like, there's no way it could get any worse. Well, before there was ambulances to come pick you up off the beach. There were instructors and doctors. Now you're around a bunch of animals that want to eat you alive. And if you don't produce and perform at a high level, you're going to get your trident taken away real quick. And plus, you're not a SEAL to them. In fact, you're not a SEAL until you've done 6 hard years as an operator. And at that time, you can call yourself a SEAL or be known as one, but you better not be talking about it too much, because it's a very, very humbling process. It's not like the Marine Corps where you're once a Marine, always a Marine. In the SEALs, it's every single day, did I earn my trident? Like right now, technically, I'm not a SEAL because I didn't jump out at high altitude today into the ocean, then dive under the water with a Draeger, and then to a mission. No, I sat around in Mexico here doing my thing, doing my social media and stuff. Yeah. And so it's a big difference going on to a real team, and it's scary going on to a real team. I did have a slight advantage when I joined the team as a new guy, because I had already had combat experience, which is rare. I had already had more combat experience than most of the senior guys there as a Blackwater guy in the Red Sail QRF teams in war, and then the Marine Corps. So I had some advantages going in, and they like that.
That gives me a question. You brought up Blackwater. We try to talk about some trials and tribulations people face and how some of the hardships they go through. And you may disagree with this statement, but I always tell people, hey, being in the military is tough. Basic training's tough. Deployments are tough. TDY is tough. And even if you're not getting shot at, just sometimes the fact, hey, you're away from family and friends for a long period of time. You can go several months without contact, weeks. What was the toughest training or experience you went through? Was it Blackwater? Was it SEALs? Was it just Marine Corps basic? Because, different phases of your life, Marine Corps for an 18-year-old kid could be a lot harder for you versus SEAL training, but you may still say, no, SEAL training is the worst ever. I'm just curious.
Yeah. I would definitely say My first thing that comes to my mind is in SEAL training, you're thinking about quitting all the time. It's not that you're some superstar and you never thought about quitting and you didn't quit. No, the psychological aspect here is that you're thinking about quitting all the time, because every single reason that you brought to the table to become a SEAL is smashed away, and slowly it just drained out of your body. And the difference in, let's say, Delta Force, which is known as Counter Assault Group now, CAG, Pararescue, Combat Control, all these things, no hit on them. No hit on them. However, the difference in all these is that the SEALs use the elements of the night, the freezing cold water, to completely wear you down. They don't have to yell at you. They do, but they can talk nice and softly to you, and you can quit because it's so dang miserable. And so those, enduring long, extremely long, grueling nights of frigid water, chafing that almost requires skin grafting at times for some candidates on your thighs, and the 250-pound boat gunnel tube bouncing off your head for 200-something plus miles during Hell Week in just 6 days on your feet, with a boat on your head, bouncing up and down. That stuff is it's ineffable. It's indescribable. You can't really describe it to people because it's almost impossible. So I definitely believe that the SEAL training was the hardest that I've ever been through in my life. Although moving on to an actual team, I realized that, you can actually go and exert yourself for 3 days without water, because my water one time busted because I used it as a pillow on a cactus, and then I had no water. Well, a real SEAL doesn't take water from his buddy because he messed up. And so I had to suffer in silence. We call it suffer in silence. You don't make a noise about it. You don't complain. And I thought I was going to die in the regular teams. Multiple times I thought I was going to die, and I almost did, actually. So definitely the SEALs is much more challenging than anything that I've heard of or been through myself. Although the Blackwater vetting process was very difficult at the time, it was like the Cars Eye detail type instructors that came in, and they were really cocky, arrogant, and they were like, we're going to cut 15 guys a day. So I've been through 3 different big vetting processes, but out of those 3, the SEALs was definitely the hardest.
Yeah.
I'd
Well,
quit.
Jim,
I'll say that I'd quit quick.
Jimmy, what got you through it? Every day you said, I'm thinking of quit. What got you through it?
Man, I tell you, Jim, this is what got me through. I was sitting on the 3rd day of Hell Week, is known to be the most grueling. That's when everybody starts to quit, because all your reasoning, your mom and dad pressure of you being a SEAL, all your talk of becoming one, all your desires and fantasies about becoming SEAL, all that goes away. So you have no reason to stay anymore. You have zero reason, and everything in your body, your mind, your soul says quit immediately. Quit. Why are you doing this? There's no reason to be here. And then you see guys getting up and getting hot coffee. They get a big hot blanket around them, and then they fall into sleep for a coma for 3 days when they quit. Well, Wednesday night of Hell Week came around. I'm sitting there. I'm freezing cold. It was record lows in San Diego in the wintertime since 1919. They had a newspaper clipping afterwards. It was brutally, it was hell, right? And so I'm sitting there, and half of the class got up and quit. Half the class lined up and rang the bell in front of me. And I'm watching this, but I can barely put my head up. We're in a 5-minute break. You only get like little 5-minute breaks. And I'm sitting there. The sun has gone down. They say salute the sun goodbye. This is the longest nights I could ever imagine. The sun had gone down. I didn't know how I was going to make it another second, but much less the whole night ahead of me. We're about to go back out in the surf. The instructors are reminding you that. And I remember a lot of the stuff is on the quarterdeck there. Your room, you could see your room. And I saw the light on. And an instructor came over, and he kicked my side. He kicked my side on the gunnel tube. He said, Watson, And I just kept my head down because all you can do is hunker down. Your hip flexors and your bones are aching because you're so cold, and you have no body fat, because when you shiver like this for months, you have zero body fat, 0 calories. And he said, Watson, are you going to join your class? And usually that means join your class and go to the next evolution. No, my class was quitting. This doesn't make me look good. I'm just saying my class was quitting, half my class. He said, are you going to join your class too? As in, are you going to quit too, Watson? And I sit there, I couldn't really answer him. And I looked up at the class quitting, and then I looked up at my room. It was, the lights was on, and I said to myself, I can quit now. I can get the hot bowl of soup. I can get the hot cup of coffee. I can get the hot beanie and the blanket from the oven wrapped around me, and I'll go to sleep, and it will be the best 3 days of sleep, because you sleep for like 3 days in a coma. But when I wake up, I have nothing. I have nothing to return to. I have nothing to go back to. And when you have nothing, when you have zero left in life to go back to, that is your motivator. And so I just put my head back down, and he laughed. He said, now that's what I'm talking about. That's because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for sled dogs that have been beat up, abused their whole lives, maybe neglected in many aspects. And that's who makes the real SEALs. And I may be speaking proverbially right now about other things. It's not about the SEALs. It's in life. When things get challenging, your reason a lot of times has to be like, man, I don't have nothing left to go back to. I have to conquer this. And that's what I did.
Wow. Well, after you did that, you went to a unit, right? SEALs unit.
That's right.
And did missions. I know a lot of that is top secret, but you did missions overseas somewhere with this, correct?
That's correct.
And would you say some of them were dangerous that you sent on?
I would say so. Yes, sir. I would say I would actually say the training that we do is more dangerous because it's more consistent, and I would say most of the accidents and problems happen on training rather than their actual mission. But they do that on purpose because the mission's got to be done flawlessly. And so, yes, I did a couple of national taskings that are obviously highly top secret, and it was a blast, but it was very dangerous.
You can get PTSD from a training accident.
How long were you in the military, Jimmy?
In total, counting the Marine Corps and everything, 17 years.
Okay.
Before I retired medically.
Got retired, got out, and went to work in security, correct?
Yes. I actually just had got out of the SEALs, and my dream was kind of crushed away with a traumatic brain injury, hospitalization. I was at the height of my SEAL career, and now I'm just down in the dumps, all that hard work gone. I was thinking I was going to be a master chief or maybe a senior chief, 20, 25, as long as I can, amount of years to be in. And then all of a sudden, I'm having to transition out into the real world with my wife. And it was a very difficult time. I always heard it was, but I wasn't expecting how difficult that it would be. And so I'm sitting there not knowing really what I'm going to do. You can always go do some pretty murky stuff, black ops stuff with as a former SEAL with that kind of experience. I'm kind of exploring my options. My buddy calls me, and he says, Jimmy, I said, yes. He says, do you know John McAfee? And I said, who? He says, look at your computer, man. You don't know McAfee antivirus? And I go, okay, yeah. He said, well, he's a multi-millionaire, and he's extremely paranoid. He has a nephew that was a SEAL, and he called his nephew, a distant nephew or something that's a SEAL, and he called him and said, I need the best SEAL that you got to come protect me to come protect me tonight. Well, I sure as heck wasn't the best SEAL that there was, but I was a SEAL that had just got out, and timing. And so my buddy said, he's going to call you. I'm sure he's going to pay a ton of money to you, if you can go, but you got to leave like tonight. I said, tonight? I'm not, what are you talking about tonight? I'm in California. And so John McAfee called me on the phone. A random number called me. He said, do you know who this is? And I'm like, I said, sir, I think this is John McAfee, correct? He said, that's right. You know who I am? I said, well, yes, sir. You're the guy on the computer thing. Yeah. He's like, I've done more than that. Like, okay, whatever. He says, I heard you were the best SEAL that they have. And I said, well, sir, that's not necessarily true. He's like, I don't care. I said, I just got out. And so he said, how, John McAfee was all about money. He's all about money, time and money. And he said, and so his first thing, he got right to the point. He said, how much do you charge? And I don't know what I was thinking, Jim. I said, I don't know why I said this, because I really desperately needed to find validation somewhere. I was still seeking validation out as a man. And I wanted to do something prolific. I wanted to do something powerful. And so I thought, okay, security with John McAfee, right? And so I said, 500 to 1,000 a day, depending upon the threat. That's exactly what I said. And I'll never forget John McAfee. He spewed out his scotch. I know it's scotch now, looking back. And he was like, what? And he was just so blown away by my audaciousness to say 500 to 1,000 a day. And he says, what? He says, I only charge, my Green Berets only charge me $250 a day. And I don't know why I said what I was going to say next, but I just paused and I said, well, it's your life, sir. It's your life. And I believe that's the first negotiation John McAfee ever lost. And I didn't realize at the time, but it was a play. I was playing off of his own paranoia, and I wasn't meaning to. But I just said, it's your life, basically. And he says, oh, okay. He says, well, I need you here tonight. And that's how that happened.
Wow. Well, Jimmy, let me tell you, Adam has a question we ask everybody. We're running out of time. But can I ask you this? I'd like to have you back because I'd like to finish. And we just hadn't finished yet.
Sure.
You're a remarkable story, a remarkable man. I'd like to get you back on if you would, but Adam's got one of our questions that we ask everybody. So Adam, go ahead. Let what he says.
Just to piggyback on Jim as well, I'd like to get you back because I'd like to just talk about Operation Restored Warrior.
Yeah.
I know you're big in that.
I would love to.
COO, but we always ask every guest we have on, people face trials and tribulations. If you could tell us one of the trials and tribulations you faced in your life, how you got through it, and a positive message for those that may be going through something similar. Could be SEAL training, or it could be something else. Could be totally unrelated, but just something you wouldn't mind sharing.
I've been through multiple trials and tribulations. I've been prosecuted. I've been persecuted. I've been at fault. I've had many regrets in my life. And then I've had some very highs and very lows. I've been to prison. I've been out of prison. I've been on house arrest for 1.5 years. But I've also worked in conjunction with the FBI. I've done a lot of operations with other entities, three-letter agencies, and I have a lot of respect for everybody. My one message to everyone is, first and foremost, you have to believe in a supernatural power that's going to get you through, because you can do nothing without God. You can do nothing without Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And I only know this now after many, many, many years of pain and suffering of my own doing. And so the second thing I will say is that the one thing that you cannot lose in this life is your love. Because if you lose your love, you become an animal. And if you become an animal, you are hopeless. And when you're hopeless, you die. You don't have to be dead to die in this world. You can be a walking dead man in this world without love. And so the one thing I encourage everybody today is absolutely have faith in Jesus, because he is love. And that's what I have.
Amen, brother. Thank you so much.
Fabulous message.
That reminded me. I was thinking of John 3:16 when you said that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
A
But
lot
That's
of,
right.
give me a lot of,
thanks, Jimmy. We'll be in touch, and we'd love to have
You're
you back.
great.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you and your audience. I would love to come back. You name the time and I'll come.
I'd
Thanks.
love to have you back, and let's finish this and talk about what you've done for your country. I'm afraid people sometimes don't realize how much people like you put into it and what you give and how little you back. So thank you.
So much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks.
God bless. Thanks.
Thank you.